Okay, good evening, everyone. Don't adjust your sets, don't log out. Unfortunately, the lovely Jane Austen couldn't be with us tonight, so I'm filling in for her. Jane's had to go on a mercy mission to the COVID capital of Australia in Melbourne. You've probably all noticed the pretty young lady who's been tuning in each week. That's young Elsie. I wish her a very speedy recovery. I think she's on the mend now, and hopefully she'll be back up to speed very quickly. Australian President, SB20 President Scott Glanville is going to be asking the hard questions tonight in Jane's place, and I'll hand over to him in a second. Before I go, I just want to say what a great job Jane has done of this. She's kept us all engaged with SB20 sailing. She's built up a worldwide following. She's done a really great job of it. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to turn off my camera now and tuck into my baked beans on toast that are congealing on the stove and hand over to Scott.
Thank you, Steve. I'm sure Jane will be watching this at some stage, and we'll all recognise how good she actually is when you've got to put up with me for the night. So I hope we can provide you with some entertainment. So as Steve said, I'm the president of SB20 Australia. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet tonight, which is the Mu'arnina people. Try saying that without a drink. And I acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. I think tonight we should also acknowledge the family of Peter Campbell, who passed away this week, and also Tim Roberts, who many of us sailed with over the years. So on behalf of the association, I'd just like to pass on our condolences to those families. So this is our ninth SB20 in conversation session. There's one more in 2 weeks, which then just about gets us up to the start of our summer sailing. So as Jane has planned and got ready for tonight, we're talking about women and youth in SB20 sailing. As usual, please post your questions. Our lovely host, Steve, is going to keep the chat coming. So if you want to ask something, we'll be able to see it. So I'd like to welcome our panel tonight. We have Meg Goodfellow, who sails with the Athena Women's Sailing Program in Hobart. Will Sargent, Australia's current youth and national champion, and Bernardo Pego. I hope I've pronounced that correctly, Bernardo. Winner of the first Sail Cascade Trophy a few weeks ago from Portugal. Might just start off with getting a little bit of background, especially from you, Bernardo, for those Australian people who haven't heard before. Perhaps you can give us a bit of a background as to your sailing so far.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I started sailing the Opties when I was about 9. At around the same time, I went on and had my first experience in the Dragons. Then I went on to compete in both these classes. 1 or 2 years later, I started sailing the SB20s, and also I started sailing some bigger boats, ORC boats. I briefly sailed the lasers, but I've mainly focused on the SB20s and Dragons. And yes, that's pretty much it.
And you, helm?
I don't usually helm. I'm a trimmer. I filmed the Dragon and the SB20s in the past, but in this nowadays in my youth team, I'm the main trimmer, and our skipper is Enrique Bridge.
And how old are you? I think tonight we can actually ask that, seeing we're focusing on youth. Normally we wouldn't do, but how old are you?
Yes. I'm 18.
Very young. Well, thanks for that. Sarge, yes. Most of them are familiar with you, obviously with your sailing with the SBs. Just out of interest, how old are you?
I'm 19, so
right.
I'm the elder statesman for tonight.
Are you? Right.
Apparently.
Well, Meg, you haven't been on before either, so perhaps you can give us a bit of background on yourself as well. I don't know whether we can ask you your age. Maybe you're comfortable telling us.
No, it's right. Yeah, I'm 19. I started sailing from a young age. I did the Learn to Sail program down at the Royal and started sailing sailboats down there for a little bit. Took a break from sailing for a little bit. And then when my brother moved down to Sandy Bay to start in the cadet, I started volunteering for our TACAS program. And ever since then, I worked my way up and now I'm one of the lead instructors. I did a season in the International Cadet out of Sandy Bay and also sailed for my school team. So I team sailed all the way through school from 7 to 12 and did a little bit of match racing in that. But how I got into SB20s, I started off doing a little bit with Ollie Burnell when he did his youth boat. And then from there, just jumped around a bit, did a nationals, and then signed up for the Athena sailing program. Been in there for 3 years now. And in that program, done a couple nationals and lucky enough to do some world championship events as well.
A lot of sailing for someone so young. So it's a fair shame actually that the Athena program has come to its end in Hobart. It's certainly been a good introduction for female sailors into the sport and into SB20 sailing specifically. There is quite a few come out of it. It's just a pity that that program's now come to an end.
Yeah.
Tonight we're going to have a discussion with you and our audience about female and youth participation in sailing, particularly SB20 sailing, obviously, and have a chat about some of the recent changes that Australian sailing has recommended around strengthening the youth in the sport in Australia. And Bernardo is online to give us some feedback, the way it's done in Europe and specifically in Portugal as well. Just a bit of background, Australian Sailing commissioned a review into youth sailing in 2019 and are working to implement their 10 recommendations from the review. The review covered 5 specific areas, and one area was increasing and retaining youth participation and considering ways to diversify participation. I think as an SB20 class in Tasmania, we certainly, probably by good luck rather than following an Australian sailing research, but we have been doing fairly well. We've had pretty good numbers from females, and certainly the youth participation is increasing. Will, how would you suggest that we can increase and retain young people in sailing, especially in SBs?
Yeah, I think I think the whole reason Australian Sailing did the review is that the retention levels after kids leave school and turn 19 is extremely low. You look at sailors in Tassie, I reckon 30-40% of youth sailors probably had the potential on the skill level to go on into an Olympic class or go on into competitive sailing, but other things take over or the pathway just seems too difficult. I think something like the SB20 is a really good class to keep people involved in the sport, even if it's not at a high level or full time. Because it's a good transition from a dinghy class into a social keelboat scene or into a competitive keelboat scene. I think the big thing from my end that not a lot of youth sailors do that I did is during your youth periods, I think you should try and sail as many different classes as you can. A lot of kids these days kind of specialise in one class for their entire youth year. And then they get out of youth and they don't have any other options or know of any other pathways. So while in the short term during your youth years, if you're not specialising in a class, you might not necessarily become the best in the world, but you'll become pretty good in every single class. And once you transition out of youth sailing, you have plenty of options to decide what you want to do next, which is the position I find myself in now. I don't really know which pathway to go down, but at least I have the different options. So yeah, that if I had to encourage youth sailors to do something now, it would definitely be to sail as many classes as they can, whether it's a dinghy, keelboat, foiler. I know Australian Sailing's recently introduced windsurfing and kite foiling back in, which is also some exciting things to explore. But yeah, I think kids should get out there a bit more and sail everything they can.
Just to pick up one of the points you raised there, you spoke about the pathway to Olympics or professional sailing. I think it's very important to note that sailing is not just that. I mean, sailing is a pastime that 90% of the participants do for fun. It's not about chasing the absolute pinnacle of sport. Certainly there are many, many talented sailors that should do that. But I think in order to keep them in the sport, maybe the communication about the fact that enjoyment is available in so many other ways rather than having to strive to get to that top.
Oh, 100%, and that's why I emphasise sailing all these different boats. The old pathway into the Olympic class as a youth sailor really emphasises on kids dig into a class and try and get to the top. And there's not much room in that pathway for just having fun. So I think if you play around in other classes and just have a feel for all these different kinds of sailing, you really get to appreciate the value of the sport, not just in competition, but what else it gives you outside of competition. That's something that at the beginning of my youth career, I focused way too much on results. And only now am I really beginning to appreciate what else it's given me in life, like independence skills, organisation, tolerance, resilience, like so many different things that this sport can give you. And yeah, I think it's something that youth sailors really need to learn to appreciate much earlier on.
Yeah, very good. What about you, Bernardo? How do the clubs and the fleets work to build the youth class in Portugal?
And I think the class that has established a greater youth participation has been the SB20s and Snipes. I think that they're the most dynamic classes. We have quite a few top level youth teams in Portugal. Silcascais has been has a very ambitious program to help the youth teams, it's been quite nice having the help of top sailors coaching us and guiding us in the class. I think that has, for example, for us, we were sailing. I sailed with a youth team. We were 4 on the SB20, and we had the help of top coach Gonçalo Ribeiro, and we went on to winning the nationals. And we also won the Silcascais last week. I'm very thankful for the help of the Silcascais, and it has been very interesting to see all the youth teams coming into the class and performing quite well again.
So how many
top Portuguese sailors in the fleet?
How many youth boats were there in the national?
For the national, I think we only had 3, but Vasco Serpa started 3 more teams after the national, so now there are 6 youth teams, all youth sailing in Cascais.
That's very encouraging. I saw a lot of the photos online, and there certainly did appear to be a lot of young guys out there, or young guys and girls, I should say, getting amongst it.
Yes, we have 1 full female team.
Okay. They did well?
Yes, they did very well in the nationals. They came 10th. And in the Silcascais Trophy last weekend, they're sailing very, very well.
That's good to hear. Meg, increasing and keeping women in sailing is certainly important in the development of the sport. Like most sports, people are now seeing that female participation is a way of increasing numbers and interest. What are some of the things that you've enjoyed about sailing, and do you have any ideas about how to increase participation for ladies and girls in the sport?
Yeah, so one of the best things I've enjoyed through sailing, especially in the SB, is giving us the opportunity for a group of friends just to go out every week and go out for some fun and not worry too much about the competitive side, especially the girls that are focusing more of their junior classes, whether it's 29ers cadets, where they take it a little bit more seriously with the competition. It gives us a chance to go out and just have some fun. Also, sailing has given me I've met some amazing people around the world, which I probably wouldn't have met if it wasn't for the sport. Some ways to keep women in sailing. We're lucky these days where a lot of girls are getting to it at a young age because we've got all of our Learn to Sail programs and everything. They're encouraging them to get into the sport. We're finding a lot of women who decide later on in life that they want to get into sport. There's not that many options for them to get into the class. So even if I know some clubs do it around Australia and around the world, they have adult Learn to Sails, which we'd run a few of them here, but even all female Learn to Sails. Some females may not feel comfortable going in with the males learning a new sport, where it doesn't bother me sailing against the guys, where I've done it my whole life, but some women may not feel comfortable. So some Learn to Sail options for them maybe will encourage some more women to get involved.
So one of the inevitable questions in getting female participation up is the genetics or the strength. How do you find coping with the strength involved in, especially on an SB, sometimes when you've got a cranking gale blowing, getting the spinnaker down is a bit of a challenge. So how do you find that?
Yeah, so there are definitely times when the wind picks up that we do struggle a bit to that strength side, but we know how to work around it. If we drop a bit earlier, we'll help each other around. So we've sailed together long enough now that we know how to work around those problems, and we don't let it stop us. We'll just work through it and keep going. We won't let it hold us back.
So what you're saying is brains beat brawn again, is that right?
Yeah, sometimes.
Will mentioned earlier on that one of the recommendations is to look at a kiteboarding programs. What did you think about that, Meg?
Yeah, I know, definitely kiteboarding and windsurfing along those lines. Good idea. I know a lot of the younger sailors, not just women, but a lot of the younger boys at Sandy Bay, definitely interested in windsurfing and kiteboarding and all that. So we'll definitely keep some of the youth in there. I think it's a great idea.
It seems like a bit of resurgence in those classes, certainly in Hobart. What about you, Bernardo, in Portugal? Do they have kiteboarding programs for youth sailors? Is that common as well?
Not really. It's that I'm aware of. Kiteboard in Portugal is very much supported in comparison to windsurfing, which is more traditional.
Yeah, okay. One of the recommendations out of the Australian Sailing Report was developing a club-based coaching program. I think we're very fortunate in Hobart that Sandy Bay Sailing Club certainly have had that for quite a few years now. There are other clubs. The Royals have a strong junior club as well. Will and Meg, can you both describe what you've experienced from your junior clubs? Meg, I know you're heavily involved in coaching at Sandy Bay. Will, you can go first. What was your experience, the way the club-based coaching went for you?
Yeah, I think Sandy Bay really have the system down pat now. I think the way they go about using their senior sailors to coach junior sailors, it's just kind of a never-ending circle, I suppose. You're constantly getting kids to pass on knowledge to younger kids. I'm currently also doing a sports coaching degree at uni, and one of the things we're learning at the moment is how much more receptive kids are learning from peers closer to their age, and people that have done things recently. So like, yeah, kids that are having success at Sandy Bay, teaching these tackers and these intermediate sailors has been really good. I think it's strengthened their coaching program a lot. Not looking just at talent, but also sheer numbers. I think a learning environment that's really positive and really welcoming for a sport like sailing is really important, because certainly from experience as a young person, it's a pretty scary looking sport from the outside potentially for some people. I remember I was about one windy session away from quitting when I first started at 12 years old. But yeah, I think the way they're doing it, using kids that are sailing the 16, 17, 18 to be teaching the newcomers is really important to the success of the sport and the club.
It's interesting. So you're confirming the fact that young people don't like listening to us old farts. Is that right?
I don't know. I don't mind listening to some of you every now and then, but more the younger kids when they're first starting. I mean, yeah. From personal experience, I can probably also testify to. I might listen to an 18-year-old before I listen to a elder gentleman. But yeah, I don't know.
Have to take notice of that then, I suppose.
Yeah.
Meg, you've been coaching down there for at least the last couple of years that I've seen you. What about your experiences?
Yeah, so I'm more heavily involved with all our tackers and learn to sail things, so bringing new kids into the sport. And we use a lot of our, as Will said, the older sailors, these sailors who've been in the sport. They come with us. A lot of them start from a young age, so we get the cadet crews that come along, they volunteer. So we've got the kids that are their age with them, and then the sailors can work their way up. But even with our, for example, the 29er class, we get the kids, they come back, volunteer coach, and they're sailing in the boat with the new kids. So if there's a new person coming into the class, they're not just getting the coach from the coach boat, they've basically got a coach in them with the boat, helping them through every step of the way. And we have heaps of different training options, whether they want midweek after school, they just want to race, they want full-on camps. We have something out there for everyone, whether you want to do it for some fun or really competitively.
I think it's also important to note that I know from Sandy Bay's perspective that they do put the juniors who are now coaching younger juniors through a coaching program. So they're actually getting structured training as well. It's not just fly by the seat of the pants training, is it?
No, yeah. So we do a certain amount of volunteer hours. So they come, whether that's with tackers or some of them do it with like cadets or 29ers. They do a certain amount, and then they'll go off to their Australian sailing instructor course and their instructor course. And throughout that, at the club as well, Lizzie won the head coach at Sandy Bay. We also run our own little tailored Sandy Bay one as well. So they get heaps of training along the way to be able to pass that on as well to the younger coaches and sailors.
That's excellent. Do you coach other younger sailors in Portugal, Bernardo? Is he frozen? Yes.
No, I meant that
You don't?
No, not yet.
Okay. But how did you come through? Did you come through a club coaching perspective? Like what age did you start? And is that the same process in Portugal?
Yes, I started sailing in Glanville at the age of 9. And I think it's the same. It's the same as in Australia. We started in the Optimists, and then
It's not a very good connection, Bernardo, at the moment. Hopefully that comes back online shortly.
no.
Sorry, you there now?
Yes, can you hear me?
That's better now, yes, for the time being.
Yes.
Yep,
Can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Okay. Did you? Yes. So I was saying that I came from a club sailing background. I started sailing the Optimists at the age of 9 in Cascais, and then here in Portugal we only have two classes, so the 420 and the lasers, and then some sailors progress into the 14 hours, but two main classes after the Optimists are the lasers and the 420.
Okay. Another of the review recommendations was to create a series of Youth Week events, which could include clinics and racing. What do you think of that as an option, Will and Meg?
Well, I might be the best person to ask because I'm actually organising the first one in Tassie in a month and a half. Basically, it's a concept Victoria's been running for a couple of years. So they run a 2-day coaching clinic, and they try and bring the best coaches from the state and a couple of interstate coaches along to this youth clinic. They try and get every person sailing a youth class in each state to this coaching clinic. And they run a 2-day clinic with all these coaches. And then the next 2 days is the state youth regatta. So it just kind of gives a nice 4-day block to get all the youth classes together in one environment, get everyone working together, learn a couple of new things from some coaches they might not have worked with before, and then go on to put all that to work in a regatta the 2 days after. it wasn't as important when the Australian Youth Championships was a thing, but now they've cancelled that. These state youth events are really the only all youth events in the country. So I think they'll start to grow even more so than what they have in the past, simply because they're the only option for an all-youth regatta these days. Every other regatta, South Melbourne, South Sydney, Class Nationals, they all incorporate open sailors as well as youth sailors. So I think this year with COVID, it might be a bit of a hit and miss, but I think from next year onwards with no Australian Youth Championships, they're going to really take off.
Well, that'll be good. What about yourself, Meg? Have you had much of a chance to be involved with that?
I haven't had too much involved in the Australian Youth Champ ones, but I remember a couple of years ago with the SB20 Association, they do that youth weekend or youth day. I've been involved in a couple of them.
Sounds good. The She Sails program has been designed by Australian Sailing to assist in getting the numbers up for ladies. Certainly part of promoting the enjoyment of sailing in a fun, friendly and safe environment. And as we mentioned earlier, the Athena program was heavily established to support that. What did you think of these programs and how successful that one in particular was in getting ladies into SBs?
Yeah, so the She Sails program, from what I've seen, they've done amazing events all around the country and heaps of women have kind of come out for them. And the Athena program, especially for me and heaps of women, that was an amazing program. They got so many people through that program and into the class who may never have thought to come into an SB. A few of them didn't stick with the SBs, but they moved on to sail and kill boats and with other people. So the Athena program was a great program. For me, it gave me the opportunity to do all the sailing that I have on SBs. Without that program, me and the other girls I sailed with, I don't reckon we would have done as much or maybe any SBs sailing.
So even though it's come to its end, you think that it did work quite successfully in getting women more into the sailing then?
Yeah, definitely. It was got to make. But some of the girls that I sailed with, they definitely wouldn't have done SBs if it wasn't for that program. Because obviously not everyone out there can afford to buy the boat, buy the sails and everything that comes along with it. So it's a great way. They lend you the boat, you pay a little bit and you could go off for the season.
Very good. We might focus a little bit more on SBs now, seeing that's the reason we're all here to sail. Bernardo, as you mentioned earlier, you had some fantastic youth sailors at Sail Cascais and your nationals. Why do you think your youth sailors are so successful in those senior fleets in the SBs?
It's two answers. Firstly, we have they're very talented sailors, and I think it's just pure talent. And then also I think that the coaching behind all the youth teams and the support that Sail Cascais has given us has been essential to increase our performance. But pure talent.
So how did you go with your boats? Who owns the boats that you all sail on?
So personally, the boat I sail on belongs to me, so it's my SB20. But Vasco has a program of lending the SB20s to each team. So he has 6 SB20s for the 6 youth teams, and the youth sailors use his boats to train and to do the clinics. And then they race in Cascais with the boats.
Yeah, Vasco is very good over there. He's got lots of. I know our guys that were heading to Cascais for the Worlds were going to charter boats from Vasco, so he's got some good commitment to the class there. And you own your own boat.
Yes,
so
very.
Did you recruit your helm, or how did that come about?
No, my helm we started, we sailed together a few times, and then we supposedly were going to have the Worlds in Cascais in 2020, and we decided to start a youth team. We put the team together, and then we started sailing last November, We went on to win the nationals in July after a lot of training, a lot of hours in the water, and we pretty much we learned a lot these last months, and we're sailing quite well now. But it's basically Enrique had a different sailing background to mine, and we put our experience together and our desire to meet in the world. We formed this team. I think great. We're sailing very well.
You certainly are, by the sounds of your results. Sarge, you were on to try and get the cash K for the Worlds this year. It'd be interesting to see a good national championships between the Australians and Portuguese. So you both got good young crews.
Yeah, I think it's a shame the French guys have aged out, because I reckon it could have been a bit of a duel, hopefully towards the front of the fleet with a couple of youth teams. But no, I think it's great to have some youth teams at the top in their respective countries, and yeah, if we get the chance to do the Worlds, hopefully towards the front of that fleet as well.
We can only hope.
Only hope.
Well, what we can hope is that we actually get a World Championships in 2021. That will be good.
True. It'll be a good start.
It will. So just focusing on your team from the Nationals, they had an average age of 15.
Yeah.
Which put all us old blokes to shame, even though I'm in the back of the fleet anyway. But how do you reckon the young age in your crew helped you to get there? A bit of no fear, was it?
It was a bit like a childcare centre on the boat between races. But
you've got to get your crew back. Don't go abusing them.
No way, it was a joke. They all know it was a joke. But yeah, look, I don't really know what happened, to be honest. We just kind of me, Eddie, and Jacob sailed together a lot. Done a bit of match racing and stuff. We just went to the event just to have a bit of fun. We was kind of very last minute. We didn't even know we were doing it until 2 weeks before. But yeah, I think because myself and a lot of these other guys as youth sailors try and sail a lot of different boats, one of the advantages of that is you don't really need to spend too much time in a boat to figure out how to sail it fast. And that was all we focused on for the entire event, and the one training day we had before it is just learning how to sail the boats fast and then worrying about everything else as it came. So I think what we probably did the best in the fleet was just focusing on sailing the boat fast, because at the end of the day, if you're not going fast, may as well not rock up to the start line. So yeah, I think that was probably the defining thing for us, was just focusing on the basics. As a younger team, we don't really have the experience and don't really understand all the technicalities just yet. So if you just simplify everything for yourselves, it made it easier. Yeah, look, I still don't really know how we sailed as well as we did. I wasn't expecting it at all, but yeah, those three guys in front of me have a hell of a lot of talent for their age. So I'll leave it down to those guys and me steering in a straight line.
It worked anyway.
Yeah.
Meg, you've done 2 Worlds already at your young age, Hobart and Jerez. Did you have any other thoughts to go back to Europe for more Worlds?
Hopefully I'll get back to Europe eventually, do another Worlds. As of next year's Worlds, at the moment it's looking like we probably won't attend it. But I'm sure it'll be a great event like all the others. Hopefully one day I'll get there, but again, never say never. Might end up going next year. We'll just see what happens. But at this stage, probably give next year's a miss.
What was your experience with Jerez? You sailed in not only a youth team, but a fully female youth team over there, didn't you?
Yeah, so we were a full female youth team over there. It was a great regatta. We had some ups and downs, some challenges we didn't expect to face. But we went into that regatta as just a learning experience. We want to learn much as possible and just go sailing in Europe. A few of the girls on the boat had never competed in SB World Champs and never sailed in Europe. So yeah, we just went to have some fun, learn as much as possible, and yeah, it was a great regatta.
If I recall correctly, you were almost top 20 first race, weren't you? 22.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Produced the best one out of the blocks. That was good.
Yep.
So Bernardo, have you had any sailing against any of the Australian teams yet? Porco Rosso or Brett's Boat Alias or Andrew Smith? Did you sail against them when they were in Jerez?
I sailed against Porco Rosso, and they were very competitive indeed.
Yeah, they all three of those boats did well over there, so it was certainly good to get them up to the top end of the fleet. What advantage do you reckon the Portuguese teams will have in Cascais, apart from the obvious being at home? What is it about sailing in Cascais that you think you'll need to beat the Australian teams?
I think sailing in Cascais can be quite tricky race course as any other race course. It can be an advantage for us in the Worlds next year. But I think that, as always, the secret is to be fast and to be smart. So I think that any team, any Australian team can have a chance, really.
Well, as Will has already proven, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to have lots of sailing experience if you can sail a boat well. So there's a challenge for you, Will.
Or money. Don't need much of that either.
Well, I think you've got to get some to get to Cascais, though. We might just focus on the actual racing now. What's it like out on the race course, Meg, when in an all-female team? How do you feel? Do you feel as though it's equal opportunity? There's no animosity or disrespect or anything like that out there?
No, we're very lucky when we're out there. We feel like we're treated the same. We're respected. There's a few instances where we feel like we haven't been treated fairly or respect's not there, but that's very rare. Our crew's like we've only experienced probably a couple of times. I know some other females on the water and sailing and other female crews have dealt with that a little bit more than us. But overall, no, we feel treated very fairly and respect out there.
Well, it should be equal. At the end of the day, we're all sailors.
Yeah.
What about you, Will? Have you ever had any need to feel that there was anything different between the male and female sailors once they all get on the water?
Oh, I think in a class like an SB, apart from maybe the really strong wind stuff, I think it's pretty much everything's identical. Don't have to hike in them. Sheet loads are reasonably light for a keelboat. So yeah, I think that a female crew has just as much right to win a world championship as what a male crew does. It's a bit different when you get into an Olympic class or into a high performance dinghy. But I think in terms of SBs and sports boats, they have every right to be up the top with mixed or all male teams.
Certainly the top female sailors, from my experience, are just as competitive as the male sailors. They don't like getting beaten any more than we do. So I think it's one of the very few sports where true equality is virtually achievable.
Oh, 100%. You can't really, like you go to a soccer match or whatever, or a footy game, it's pretty hard to compare when it's so physical and so reliant on physical attributes. But something like sailing, you can set your boat up differently. You can deal with a lot of those things. So I think it's a cool sport in that regard.
Bernardo, you were saying, and as I mentioned earlier, I saw in the photos that your top youth crew, quite a few of them have female sailors in their crews. How does all that work for you in Portugal?
Yes, we, as I said earlier, we have a full female team, youth team in Portugal, and we also have Helm Mafala Pidgelima, one of the most successful sailors, youth sailors in Portugal at the moment. So we have a very, and another very interesting thing in the SB20 class is the mix of sailing backgrounds in the class, and I think that that results in very fun and exhilarating racing.
It certainly looked like you were having fun. You had some nice weather for Sail Cascade anyway.
Yes, blowing 35 knots on Saturday.
35 knots. That's having it then.
Perfect.
Yes.
Exactly. It's pretty consistent in Cascade, isn't it? From what I've seen, like it doesn't have the sharp gusts that we're used to down here in Hobart.
Yes, we have a strong northerly winds, but it's pretty consistent. We actually, for the first time, this racing was quite a different format. Firstly, because we had a medal race at the end, which made things more exciting because we went into the medal race leading 5 points out of Vasco, but in the medal everything can change. But we were actually racing inside the bay, so we had more shifts, and so there were more gains and losses that could be made because it was quite shifty.
Because the worlds actually sail outside, don't they? Basically in the Atlantic.
Yes, in gear race course, it depends on the wind from which side it's blowing, but it's usually on the gear race course, which is full on normally with the wind.
It makes for very exciting sailing from what I've seen. So and our sailors who were there for the last Worlds said that as well. So, well, that's about it for tonight. I'd like to thank Meg, Will, and Bernardo.
Yes, the last.
Apologise for everyone I've had to fill in for Jane. I'm nowhere near as efficient as she is, but we've got through. Our final conversation series in the next fortnight is to do with starting our season in Australia. So you'll have the SB20 Australia executive of Jill Abel, Ollie Burnell, Felicity Allison and Chris Dare, along with myself. So we'll have a bit of a chat about what the season's got, what we're trying to do to grow the class in Australia, and a few ideas about some new events that are coming up, both in Tasmania and Australia. We're also going to have our Singaporean contacts and friends on to talk about the Worlds in 2022. It does seem a fair way away, but if you're planning on going, they'll give us some advice and some assistance about what might be needed for that. So apart from that, I'd like to thank everyone who listened. Thank Will, Bernardo and Meg again for their time. And good night, everyone.
That was wonderful.
Thank you very much, guys.